Barabbas was never a good man. His name was whispered in dark alleys with fear, and just hearing it made people uneasy. A thief, a murderer, a rebel. He carried these titles well, but he never expected to find himself standing before a raging crowd, next to a stranger who was waiting for the same fate. That day, the governor, Pontius Pilate, stood before the people. It was the custom to release one prisoner during the feast, and when Pilate asked the crowd who they wanted, they shouted without hesitation, "Release Barabbas." The ground shook with their voices. Barabbas turned his head and looked at the man beside him, Jesus. He wasn't fighting for his life. He wasn't even trying to defend himself. There was no fear in his eyes, only something strange, as if he knew what was coming, and he accepted it. Then came the final words, "You are free." As Barabbas was pushed out of the courtyard, he couldn't believe it. The air felt fresher than he remembered, the sun warmer. But he didn't feel victorious. Something heavy sat on his chest. That man, Jesus, had died in his place. He couldn't escape that truth, no matter how far he walked through the streets he once ruled. Days passed, but his heart found no peace. Then, rumors began spreading. People said the tomb was empty, that Jesus had risen from the dead. It sounded insane, but he couldn't ignore it. Tormented by guilt and unanswered questions, Barabbas found himself wandering through the city, searching for those who had followed Jesus. Eventually, he came across a small house where they gathered. From outside, he could hear voices, whispers of prayer, quiet conversations filled with grief and hope. When he finally stepped inside, silence fell over the room. Some recognized him immediately and shrank back in fear. But one man, John, the disciple who had been closest to Jesus, did not move. He simply looked at Barabbas with a gaze that held no anger, only understanding. Barabbas sat among them, but he did not belong. He was not one of Jesus' followers. He was the man who had walked free while Jesus was condemned. And yet, he couldn't keep silent. He needed answers. Why had Jesus not defended himself? Why had he said nothing to stop his own execution? Why had he chosen to die while a man like Barabbas was allowed to live? The truth began to settle in his heart like a slow-burning fire. Jesus had accepted his fate willingly. It was not just the Roman soldiers or the crowd that had sent him to the cross. He had chosen to take that punishment. Then came a thought that shook Barabbas to his core. If Jesus had truly died for him, then the forgiveness he longed for was not something he needed to beg for. It had already been given. The weight of those words crushed him, and for the first time in his life, the hardened criminal wept, not out of fear, but out of something deeper. It was a strange thing, to be set free twice. Once by the crowd's choice, and now by something far greater. Barabbas was never the same man after that day. No one knows exactly where he went or how his life ended. But some say they saw him among the followers of Jesus, telling the story as if he had lived it himself, because, in a way, he had.